I was 32 when I discovered my dad's Nokia phone tucked away in a safety deposit box, the kind of box where memories and old trinkets are buried, weighed down by grief and time. The small metal key hung heavy on my keychain, reminding me of the day my father passed. Every time I touched it, a wave of confusion and dread washed over me. The phone itself was battered, scratches marred its once sleek facade, the keypad faded and sticky, each number an echo of laughter and 1,000 forgotten conversations. As I turned it over in my hands, the odd weight felt almost comforting, despite its neglect. Memories began flooding back. My father had always loved gadgets, desperately trying to keep up with the fast-paced world of technology while working his accounting job. I recalled family gatherings when he would whip out the latest phone to take photos or set reminders. His ability to adapt, a source of pride for him. It saddened me that I'd never see his face light up over some new innovation again. Taking a deep breath, I pressed the power button, expecting the fizzling startup tone. Nostalgia gripped me when the familiar ringtone chimed from the speaker, wrapping me in a warm blanket of childhood memories. Family movie nights, driving to the coast, my father's voice booming as he tried to teach me how to program the old VHS player. The screen lit up and I saw the icons glow. My heart raced. So much time had passed since I last held anything of his. As I navigated through the familiar menus, my heart sank. Inside, it was filled with 3 saved voicemails, each one a relic of a time I desperately clung to. The first 2 messages were straightforward, mundane reminders my dad had left, a grocery list and a sweet message from a Saturday afternoon. I let out a chuckle, the sweet timbre of his voice reaching out through time, rekindling an ache I had thought dulled in his absence. But then I came to the last voicemail. With growing anticipation, my finger hovered over the play button. I was nervous, caught between wanting to hear his voice once more and fearing what lay ahead. Moving past the brief nostalgia, I pressed play. At first, it sounded normal. My father's voice was as I remembered, warm and inviting. I could feel my heart swell with love as he spoke my name. Then, in a perplexing shift, I heard my own voice screaming for help, echoing back into the silence. It struck me like a lightning bolt. I leaned back, disbelief creeping in, uncertainty swirling like a storm. My mind raced as I tried to piece together what I'd just heard. It must be a recording error, I thought. Maybe something's been edited. But that rationalization felt flimsy against the weight of the impossible. I tapped into the phone's metadata, hoping for answers that promised clarity, but found only confusion with timestamps I didn't recognize. Panicking, my heart hammered in my chest. Life felt disjointed. Had I somehow imagined the comment? I couldn't even grip my own thoughts, let alone this strange sound. Had I finally lost it? The weight of my own reality felt unbearably heavy. I tried to replay it, desperate for confirmation, but the voicemail had vanished. A feeling of dread settled in my gut. If this is sending chills down your spine, hit that like button. Trust me, it gets so much worse. That moment of pure panic shook me to my core. What had I witnessed? I exhaled shakily, yet my heart raced as I sifted through the previous messages. Surely I was just mistaken. But as I re-listened, the peaceful monotony of the first 2 voicemails faded. Subtle phrases crept in, hints at uneasy future events that slipped past my subconscious, like whispers of something terrible. The first voicemail was a simple, joyful reminder to pick up a cake for my mom's birthday, but a new context gripped me. The mention of an event that would happen weeks later at the same place he referenced. The second voicemail, a routine check-in, hinted at my upcoming job interview. I hadn't realized until then that both messages contained echoes of the future, unsettling shadows cast over their sweet mundane nature. I grabbed the phone and examined its settings, searching for some kind of glitch, desperate for normality. But everything appeared fine. In a fit of panic, I consulted online forums, hoping for a community that shared similar stories, but they all ended with hollow explanations that left me feeling more isolated than before. Each sleepless night pushed me deeper into despair, further realizing that all I could find were testimonies of confusion and fear, stories echoing in my mind as an endless loop. But nothing could prepare me for what I found hidden in the settings. Comment below, have you ever found something from a lost loved one that seemed wrong? I need to know I'm not alone in this experience. Days turned into nights of obsessive searching, piecing together the missing links of my shattered reality. I had this nagging feeling that somehow something sinister was happening, an impossible pattern emerging. I could feel paranoia scratching at the back of my mind, whispering that the future wasn't just uncertain. It was predestined, etched deep within the code of my father's last voicemail. Then, in a rush of adrenaline, I decided to hit play on that final voicemail again. I wasn't prepared for the depths it would plummet me into. The audio distorted, a menacing echo filling the void. And then suddenly, a sharp warning about something specific happening soon, an event I couldn't understand. The gravity of the voicemail sank in an instant. Tightness in my chest as panic coursed through my veins. I grabbed my notes, hands shaking as nausea swirled. My fingers trembled over each word I jotted down. Screenshots became my only comfort, proof of something tangible. Yet when I tried to check the call log, I found everything had changed. The truths I thought I could hold on to turned slippery, elusive. The truth settled in, heavier than a stone. I was staring at the phone, realizing he was trying to warn me about something that connected to a future date I knew. A date filled with dread, unimaginable events waiting at the precipice of tomorrow. Questions swirled, unfurling new layers of panic that wrapped around me like a suffocating fog. What had my father stumbled upon? Was this the last warning he could provide? A haunting message spiraling through time? Eager to understand, I sought the wisdom of tech experts, probing them about the evidence stored within that Nokia. Each one smiled pityingly, unable to offer concrete answers, and I felt my descent into the unknown deepen. Some mentioned time travel and quantum theories, whispers of paradoxes that never seemed to hold water within my odd case. I delved into research and discussions around temporal anomalies, attempts to make sense of the madness gripping me, only for my heart to be drawn further into the dark spiral of the inexplicable. I could almost touch the theory of what I was dealing with, yet the layers of circumstantial evidence felt like grains of sand slipping through my fingers. But understanding the how didn't prepare me for how deep this truly went. If you want access to stories that are too disturbing to share publicly, consider becoming a channel member. There's a world of horror lurking just beneath the surface. After countless investigations, connections formed. Predictions from the voicemail became hauntingly accurate within mere days. At times, I found the messages led me, twisting through my life like a morbid map of predetermined events. The emotional disconnection prompted me to reach back into my father's past, desperate to understand the motives behind his strange warnings. Eventually, I unearthed hidden notes that suggested he, at some point, had knowledge of these unseen threads, the interconnectedness binding us to an uncertain future. They were filled with desperate scribbles, theories of possibility versus inevitability, overshadowing our lives with shadows of a nefarious design. I realized these weren't just messages, they were threads of fate leading somewhere dark. I've compiled other stories of similar phenomena into an ebook where I document over 50 cases of temporal anomalies, the links in the description. But what could I do with all the foreseen events that lay before me? I felt compelled to change course, to prevent the warnings outlined in my father's last voicemail. The dread propelled me forward, attempting to act on the knowledge like it would somehow rewrite our fate. Then came the moment when I confronted someone mentioned in the messages. Every action I took only wound tighter, a suffocating grip around my reality. The moments felt predetermined, each move I made rendered futile, signifying a setup that my father had foreseen all along. As the walls of certainty crumbled, the emotional distress reached its apex, culminating in a terrifying epiphany. Stripped of control, I understood the essence of his warning. What he wished to convey was not merely about preventing chaos, but rather about the nature of existence itself. If these revelations have reshaped how you perceive time and memory, show your appreciation with the thanks button. Your support allows me to continue these investigations. In the end, as reality wove itself into a complex tapestry of anxiety and loss, I found myself staring at the Nokia phone with hollow eyes, questioning the very fabric of my existence. The threads were intertwined between me and my dad, and as I trembled from the implications, I felt the final confrontation approach. An inescapable conclusion pressed into my mind like a vice. Even now, I keep the phone, hoping for answers that may never come. The implications gnaw at my conscience, dreams blurring the line between our realities. Last week, as I touched the cracked screen, I noticed a new message saved on the phone. Its date? Tomorrow. I'm filled with a blend of dread and anticipation each time I pick up my father's Nokia phone. For days, the weight of it has pressed down on my chest, the way memories can suffocate. Returning to the safety deposit box felt like digging up a grave. My father had been gone for nearly 5 years, and revisiting our shared past was like reaching into a time capsule that I had buried with my grief. When I first turned it on, everything felt familiar yet strange. The scratches on the screen mirrored the memories etched in my mind. Each mark was a hint of laughter and tenderness from a time long past. I couldn't help but remember the way he would excitedly pull out his phone to share the latest tech gadget with me, always eager for me to see what was new, engaging me in conversations about technology that both fascinated and perplexed him. My dad had a knack for keeping up with trends, and at times I could sense a sense of urgency behind it, perhaps a fear of being left behind in a world that was rapidly changing. I got lost in thoughts of the countless times we shared phone calls and mused on the mundane conversations that filled my childhood. "Don't forget to pick up the dry cleaning," he would say, or "I'll be home late, I have to finish a project." They flooded back, swirling through my head like memories swimming in a foggy dream. As I cautiously navigated through the phone's menus, I felt that sticky nostalgia mix with an underlying unease. I was forced to confront the reality that these voicemails were all I had left of him, and yet within that comforting familiarity lay a dark unknown. The saved voicemails appeared innocuous enough, whispering of everyday tasks and sweet, unremarkable exchanges. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. What exactly was unsettling about this little black box? With a trembling finger, I pressed play on the first voicemail. My dad's voice burst forth, a simple hello, a reminder about a family get-together. My heart warmed so that it felt almost tangible, a bittersweet longing filling the spaces left hollow by his passing. Yes, this was recognizable. This was home. But then something shifted. I felt a chill ripple through my spine as I glanced over the next voicemail. There would be an abrupt and unwelcome change waiting for me in the final message that hung like a dark cloud above the sunshine of those first two. It was the anticipation of a storm that threatened to taint what was once pure. "Pick up a cake for Mom," he repeated. This was simple enough. But during the sweet sentiment, I felt an urge of anxiety clawing into my gut. Had he recorded something ominous? A message from beyond that I wasn't prepared to hear? Surely the universe wouldn't allow him to send me warnings from the beyond through such a mundane device, I told myself. I rationalized it, allowing hope to sweep over my doubts for a brief moment, stifling their resurgence. As I readied myself to confront the possibility that this device could hold more than I imagined, the charm of nostalgia was pinned against the wall of my anxiety. I knew I had to know what lay beyond the last voicemail, but a growing dread invaded my thoughts. It didn't matter that I had already played the first two voicemails, relished in the comfort of familiarity, because the allure of that final recording, the dark unknown of its potential contents, pulled me in like a moth to a flame. And that's when I pressed play on the last message, feeling as though I had taken a step into a treacherous abyss. What would that last interaction reveal? If this is sending chills down your spine, hit that like button. Trust me, it gets so much worse. I pressed play, and for the first time, uncertainty flooded my senses. The sound of my father's voice wrapped around me, vibrant with warmth, before it cracked against an awful realization. The voice screaming for help that followed was my own. I still remember the weight of that moment, the crushing realization hitting me with a brutal force. I had expected warmth and nostalgia, but instead I was thrust into a chilling nightmare that shattered any semblance of reality I had left. My father's voice faded into background noise as the panic clutched at my throat, and my own shriek echoed back at me, raw, desperate, and laced with terror. I racked my brain, searching for an explanation, but the cold grasp of confusion allowed no respite. What had I just unearthed? My heart raced as I sat in that moment of silence, feeling lost in a temporal labyrinth constructed of sound waves from a phone that should have offered me comfort. How had we arrived here? Second-guessing every memory, I felt my childhood slip away. Was this what my father was trying to protect me from? I had to know more. I felt my sanity teetering on the brink, urging me to dive deeper into the darkness of my father's unexpected, twisted message. Days blurred into nights as the shock morphed into an obsession. I relentlessly replayed those voicemails. But with each pass, I was left unsettled, not only by the last message, but by insights I gathered from the first two. I replayed the mundane details, dissecting every word for hidden meanings, an unearthed darkness lurking below the surface. Pick up a cake for Mom echoed in my thoughts, now weighted with foreboding. A simple, cheerful request suddenly felt sinister, pregnant with unread meanings. The fabric of my memories began to unravel, with the worst parts glaring like scars on an otherwise pristine surface. At odd moments, glimpses of uncanny occurrences punctuated our shared history in agonizing clarity. The casual mentions of events and things they seemed to predict. Moments I had brushed off now haunted me, their implications palpable. Once trivial exchanges became appendices of a dark narrative I had been wholly unprepared to accept. An old family video played in my mind, the last birthday we celebrated together, his cheerful voice ringing through the air, and how those ordinary times now felt like crumbs leading to a perilous cliff. Each day became my trial, a methodical sifting through the digital remnants captured in that cursed device. I began my research with fervor. I scoured academic papers, followed trails of frantic online discussions about time and the implications of temporal paradoxes. The chatter in those forums was a chaotic mixture of fascination and skepticism, and I found myself drawn into the depths of theory. Could my father have stumbled upon something significant in the realm of realities? A universe where time wasn't just a linear path? I sought out experts, tech enthusiasts who promised explanations, though the pity written on their faces and their vague reassurances served only to deepen the chasm of isolation. "It's probably a glitch," one expert said, his tone dismissive. "Old technology acts up sometimes." Each polite dismissal felt like a pinprick. The weight of his words hung over me like a shroud. Yet how could I expose this as mere technical effusion when my very essence felt dictated by his foreboding voice? My frantic mind sought answers, but the inquiries wound tighter, spiraling further into a labyrinth. I had spent the last 2 nights tangled in sheets, trying to make sense amid a deluge of theories without resolution. But understanding the how didn't prepare me for how deep this truly went. As the chaos massaged into something relentless and overwhelming, I realized the deeper mystery beckoned. If this was more than just a broken voicemail, what implications awaited? Were these messages from my father not misdirected fears, but rather vital threads connecting me to something more momentous? I dove headfirst into the spiraling pool of memory and possibility until I could feel it calling. If you want to hear more stories about uncanny technology from the past, subscribe to the channel. Because what I found in this Nokia phone changed everything I thought I knew about time. Each passing day became a rehearsal for sorting through dreamlike realities. What once had been an innocuous mother's birthday cake took on an ominous significance I was desperately trying to decipher. Destiny rippled below the surface, waiting to pull me under. The days turned into a haze of anxiety as the messages swirled around me like a storm waiting to unleash its fury. The last voicemail haunted every moment of my existence. I couldn't shake the trauma of my father's voice mixing with my own desperate cries. It was as if a dark prophecy had been inscribed in the airwaves, weaving a tapestry of events yet to unfold, a future that loomed ever closer, thick with dread. I became fixated on interpreting every word of those voicemails, convinced they held clues about what was to come. I replayed them with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Each phrase echoed in my mind. Pick up a cake for Mom. It seemed like such an innocent task at first, but now it felt laced with an impending doom, the weight of it pressing down hard until I could hardly breathe. I began to question everything. Was there more hidden in the background of the recordings? In the twilight hours, the flickering light of my computer screen became my only ally, and I immersed myself in the fever dream of internet research. I scoured every corner of forums dedicated to time travel and phenomena, hunting for stories that mirrored my own, my heart pounding with every potential revelation. I sifted through threads laden with theories of time being nonlinear, of voicemails acting as echoes from the future. I was relentless. I needed answers. What unnerved me was how familiar so many stories felt. These people who spoke of strange occurrences and predictions didn't all seem insane. They were like misfits piecing together the jigsaw puzzle of their own experiences, and I was undeniably part of this odd family now. Piece by piece, the narrative wove tighter, binding me to my father's bizarre warnings. The more I uncovered, the more paranoid I grew. My search led me to hear about a few cases where others had experienced similar phenomena. I felt the cold tendrils of fear wrap around my neck as I read about people receiving messages that seemed to predict tragedies in real time. Among the stories was a woman who claimed to have received video calls from her deceased uncle just moments before he died in a car accident. Each account felt like a confirmation, a dark reassurance that I wasn't alone in this. Armed with determination and a growing sense of dread, I decided to confront my fears and revisit the final voicemail. I felt a compulsion to listen again, hoping that the third time would bring clarity. I gripped my father's Nokia phone tightly, knuckles white against the aged plastic, each crack in its surface a reminder of the past. This time, as I pressed play, I felt the adrenaline surge, tinged with apprehension. I steadied my breath, bracing for the impact. When the voicemail began, my father's voice welcomed me, bright and familiar. And then, as the chilling echo of my own voice screaming for help intertwined with his, words that had no business existing in the realm where comfort had once resided, my crackling sense of reality threatened to splinter into pieces. But after that moment of sheer horror came a bewildering twist. As the distortion enveloped my senses and the screams echoed like wails in a haunted night, I heard something new, a subtle mention buried in the chaos, a warning I had overlooked before. Amid the shuddering fear, I grasped fragments, threads connecting the impossible to the mundane. There it was, buried deep within the twisted echo. They're coming for you. It was like ice water coursing through my veins. I felt the world tilt around me, as if I were suddenly adrift in a tempest. Everything I had once accepted was now tainted, made unrecognizable by a cruel twist of fate. What were the implications of this filth I had inherited, this privacy turning into a foreboding chain? If you're already feeling chills at the thought of what comes next, hit that like button. Trust me when I say, things are about to get much darker. I backed away from the phone, breathless and dizzy, retreating to the solace of my bedroom. I needed a moment. No, I needed perspective. I felt fractured, my sense of time bent and twisted, as though I were a mere pawn in someone else's game. Each time I retreated from the depths of despair, the weight of inevitability would draw me back into obsessive contemplation. I steadily gathered everything I could, from my father's recorded messages, from cases similar to mine, each eerily intertwined with my reality. I was building my own frantic playbook of situations, annotating every connection, diligently searching for an escape route before whatever was coming could complete its cruel design. Eureka moments punctuated my sleepless nights as connections formed and disintegrated like fragile glass sculptures. Each reference uncovered made me more desperate than the last. Had my father left these warnings in the form of messages meant to protect me? Or was it simply fate twisting its cruel narrative around us both? The answer remained elusive, shrouded in shadows, but I knew with twisted certainty that I had to unravel it before tomorrow arrived. Each moment, each message pushed me closer to a reckoning I wasn't certain I could face. I was terrified of what would happen next. And as dawn approached, I cast one last glance at the Nokia phone, whispering a silent prayer for answers as light began to creep through the curtains. I spent that night in restless torment, caught in a web of unease spun from fear and determination. The Nokia phone lay like a dormant beast on my bedside table, its screen dark, much like the thoughts swirling within my mind. As dawn broke, a sliver of light pierced through the curtains, casting fleeting shadows across my cluttered desk, illuminating the remnants of my frantic search for truth. I needed to understand what those words had meant, especially, "They're coming for you." Fighting against the thick tide of dread that threatened to pull me under, I forced myself to confront the messages that had invaded my reality. I knew I needed to listen to the voicemails again, but it felt like asking to open a door to a realm where darkness reigned. I steeled my resolve and picked up the phone, my fingers trembling as they hovered over the screen. I felt as though it weighed 1,000 pounds. As I navigated the interface, memories flooded back, my father's laughter, the warmth of his presence. Just a few days ago, that same device had brought me joy. Now it felt like a jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces, an ominous puzzle I couldn't resolve. I replayed the first voicemail, his voice offering tender reminders and warm fatherly advice. Everything sounded almost normal, a memory encapsulated in time. But when the second voicemail began, my heart started racing. Those normal conversations, imbued with foreboding, tightened their grip around me like a vice. And then came the final voicemail. My fingers brushed the screen, and with plummeting anxiety, I pressed play. Listening again, with heightened sensitivity, an unsettling sensation took root in my chest. I heard both voices intertwining, not father and son, but two versions of me, one trying to reach out for help and the other lost in darkness. It hit me that my cries were echoes of warning, a desperate plea from a fragmented self trying to scream the truth. But it was the latest stab of realization that sent the cold shock waves rippling through me again. "They're coming for you," resonated louder. If my father had left behind a tangled web of prophecies and relevant warnings layered beneath those recorded conversations, what shape would the impending danger take? Were figures lurking in the shadows, bearing knowledge of my father's plight? Had I been living in the serene ignorance of everyday life while something insidious slithered around the edges, waiting for the exact moment to pounce? Frantically, I began connecting dots in my mind. Could there be someone who understood how these messages worked? Were there others who had experienced threats woven into their own narratives? My heart quickened at that thought, and I felt that familiar compulsion to reach out, to share and unearth the truth. I turned to various online communities and forums, placing my fear and burden on the virtual altar of collective wisdom. Have you ever found something from a lost loved one that seemed wrong? Something that felt too alive? Something that once belonged to them but took on a different meaning after their departure? I typed, every keystroke an act of desperation as I pushed the torment of my experience into the public sphere, hoping for recognition, resolution, or simply companionship. As the page filled with stories and echoes of shared experiences, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. Gleaning through accounts of those who echoed my own fears encouraged a sense of solidarity. Alone, we were fragmented narratives, but together, with numerous voices, we became a chorus seeking understanding against the inexorable rise of time's relentless tide. One response caught my eye. A woman wrote about how she had discovered a voice recording her late husband had left behind, one that warned her of a future event. She felt that those words had crafted a fabric around her life, as if collecting stories and memories in one binding thread. My pulse quickened, and for a moment I thought perhaps she had the answer, or at least a similar experience that could guide me. "What did it say?" I commented, eager to explore this thread further. Could she offer the key to deciphering this twisted web? I clung to the hope that her lawn of knowledge would illuminate my own dark corners. I watched the scroll of updates with burning anticipation. As the hours bled into one another, I found myself consuming every story on that thread, feeling vulnerable yet connected, like a moth attracted to the hymns of forgotten voices. Each account resonated with my heartache, spoken in a language of loss. Yet, beneath the sadness, I recognized fear, caution, and urgency reflected in my own heart. Each piece I gathered nudged my understanding a bit further, affording me a sliver of comfort, knowing that I was not the only one ensnared in a web not of my making. Then it struck me. I needed more than just the past. I had to consider the present and what the future could be. The veil was growing thinner. I could feel it. Each prediction made with my father's voice crept closer, drawing toward a reckoning. I needed to prepare myself as much as I could, to know what they were and prepare for whatever shadows awaited. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in twilight, I sat transfixed before the glow of my screen, more determined than ever to decrypt this vicious enigma. The chilling veil of evening wrapped around me, shadows stretching ominously across the room, each flicker of my computer screen becoming more pronounced than the dim light. I could feel the electric tension in the air, the kind that pricks your skin and raises the hairs on your neck. My heart hammered against my ribs, echoing the urgency of the moment. It was clear to me, action was no longer a choice, but a necessity. What had started as a process of mourning had spiraled into a desperate quest for understanding. Each voicemail tethered to the Nokia phone felt like a ticking clock, its rhythm counting down to an unknown event edging closer. "They're coming for you." The mantra replayed in my mind, a dirge growing louder as I dug deeper. With the help of those online discussions, I'd become increasingly aware of prophecies, ominous warnings, and echoes that transcended time, an entire universe filled with stories just like mine. I needed to unearth whatever the forces were that lurked just out of view, waiting for the right moment to strike. The possibility that someone or something knew more than I did filled me with dread and resolve. I was determined to piece together the darker narratives hidden within my father's messages before the nightmare could fully manifest. Would my father's warnings guide me in time? I thought, wrestling with my emotions. I refused to accept the chill of hopelessness while still clinging to every shred of information I could collect. Each new perspective, every shared experience only propelled me forward, entwining me with those who had walked the same treacherous path. That night, I became a detective in a world where the past and future collided. Every detail mattered, every forgotten bit of memory suddenly bursting forth with significance. I rifled through old family scrapbooks, poring over photos of happier times, seeking any hint of foresight my father may have shared in subtle gestures or unspoken words. An unfamiliar legitimacy seeped into my efforts, each page, each image gnawing deeper into my psyche, demanding attention. As the clock ticked on ominously, I came across a photo of my family gathered for my mother's birthday, drawn together under a canopy of vivid balloons and glowing candles. My father beamed with pride, one arm draped over my mother's shoulders. I found myself staring hard, as though glimpsing a coded message hidden behind smiles. That's when the urge to reconnect with the physical world hit me. I rummaged through drawers, searching for anything that still connected to my father's past. Old notebooks, receipts, scraps of paper that could tease out lost thoughts. It was like a scavenger hunt, each discovery a step closer to answers. But just as quickly as a triumph ignited a spark of hope, a shadow of dread would seep back in, tainting my periphery. Then I found it, a journal, its pages faded but still legible. As I leafed through it, my heart raced. They were filled with reflections, observations, and odd theories my father had penned about fate and time. An eerie map to his mindset I never knew existed. There was something remarkable about how he had contemplated the convergence of moments, the butterfly effect, and how even the smallest incursion could create waves through the fabric of existence. One entry in particular snagged my breath. We often go about our mundane lives while the tapestry unfolds, threads weaving in and out with invisible hands. Be wary of the signs. They are there for a reason. My eyes widened, my heart clenching with an unsettling resonance. Were these the coded warnings? Had he foresaw the possible dangers lurking in the future? This wasn't just about a spooky voicemail anymore. Instead, I was wading into a murky pool of profound realizations regarding existence itself, a dance between choice and predestination. Could I change the narrative that seemed to be designed for me? Cold sweat coated my palms as I rushed to my desk, flipping back to the forums to share my newfound discovery. I found my father's journal, I typed, heart racing, fingers flying. He warned about signs we often overlook, and I'm starting to piece together the connection. Have any of you seen similar signs in your experiences? It feels like everything is intertwined. As more comments began flooding in, I felt the first stirrings of the dark truth within it clawing forward. My father's every theory seemed to cascade into live discussions, further establishing the web that tied all of us together. If this investigation has shed light on any unresolved feelings or stories of your own, please hit that thanks button below. Your support means the world and fuels this journey. I need to know I'm not alone in this. As the night wore on, something deep and meaningful began to unfurl within me. I understood now that regardless of the impending darkness threatening to crash down around me, there was power in recognizing the threads of connectivity that bound us. In sharing our fears, we could take steps toward survival against the prevailing sense of inevitability. I had to keep pushing forward. I had to unravel the mysteries my father left behind. There were answers to uncover and destinies to redirect. Whatever shadow would come, I would face it head on, not as a victim, but as someone armed with connections and love, resurrecting strength from the ashes of grief and uncertainty. The reckoning had come, and I was ready. As the echo of my earlier revelation settled over me, an unfamiliar sureness began to take hold. I had immersed myself in the mystique surrounding time, an inquiry that connected countless narratives, each thread weaving its way through the fabric of our existence. The idea that my father's warnings could harbinger not just fears but guidance compelled me forward with renewed fervor. I was not experiencing this alone. I had birthed a community where understanding could blossom, illuminating the obscure corners of our lives. Fueled with determination, I returned to the community forum, feeling as though I were part of a larger tapestry, woven with the stories and experiences of others who, like me, had encountered the inexplicable. I refreshed the threads, scrolling through each layer of discussion. Every comment shone like a light on a hidden path, beckoning me to explore the deeper meanings behind my father's cryptic words and how they related to the prescient messages that haunted my thoughts. A new post caught my eye. What's the role of nostalgia in our modern lives? The user posed a question that resonated deeply within me. Nostalgia, it seemed, was more than mere remembrance. It acted as a thread connecting us to the past and, paradoxically, the future. I decided to engage, hoping to unearth insights that could further illuminate my findings. Nostalgia is not just about longing for the past, I typed, my fingers flying across the keyboard, but perhaps also a bridge, a conduit through which our loved ones try to reach us. My father's voice at moments when I feel most lost seems to be guiding me rather than haunting. Have any of you felt your loved ones reaching out through memories, whispering truths or warnings? Hitting send, my heart raced with hope and anticipation. As I watched the comments roll in, I felt a growing sense of kinship among my peers, and those purple threads of connectivity grew tighter, stronger. Someone responded immediately, sharing an experience that mirrored my own. A forgotten note from her grandmother that turned out to hold an eerie prediction about her own life. The threads of destiny interconnected here, right before my eyes. I threaded through those stories, captivated by how each person's experience added layer upon layer to the understanding I sought. Then it dawned on me. What if I could reach those who had gone further, those who had become experts in the study of temporal anomalies? My heart quickened at the thought. Could there be connections outside this forum, people who dedicated their lives to unraveling the mysteries of time and existence? I began researching, looking for academic papers, books, podcasts, and videos on related topics, eager to absorb all knowledge gained. One such discussion mentioned the idea of retrocausality, the concept that the future could influence the past. My fascination piqued, and I dove deeper into this rabbit hole of thinkers and theorists who sought to explain why my father's voice echoed forward both from his recorded messages and through the symbols embedded in the fabric of time. My research fueled an insatiable curiosity that led me to cross-reference these theoretical frameworks with the experiences shared in the forum. I had finally pulled the rug back on this peculiar universe I had unknowingly stepped into. Then I stumbled upon an exclusive, fact-filled membership group specifically dedicated to discussing these phenomena. The lure of personal interactions with others seeking the same knowledge felt like an invitation. Join the channel membership for an in-depth exploration of temporal phenomena, where advanced discussions can unravel your hidden threads of time. I had to push myself further. If you want to delve deeper into these cases, I typed, the ones too disturbing to share publicly, join the channel membership. Together, we can explore the paths connecting us. This invitation felt like a pact, an indication that moving forward with allies was vital to facing whatever shadows awaited us. As I reflected on my father's journal and its connections to my quest, I understood the potential obscure truths around us could amplify our search. The more we shared, the clearer our vision would become. No longer was this solely about grieving lost connections. It was about transforming them into powerful forces for understanding. With renewed urgency, I prepared for the next chapter of my journey. Each message sent and voice echoed strengthened my resolve, intertwining purpose with the connections I had begun to forge. Together with my newfound community, the daunting shadows that threatened to envelop us began dimming, replaced with hope's fading light as we ventured deeper into the enigma my father had left behind. The reckoning awaited, and we stood ready, equipped with collective strength and the shared belief that we were not alone in this. As I delved deeper into my father's journal, each word took on new significance, interlocking like pieces of a puzzle that formed a startlingly vivid picture of warnings and connections. I felt as though I was chipping away at the marble of my own understanding, revealing a statue of profound truths hidden beneath. My father's words echoed in my mind like a choir, orchestrating the intricate dance of choices that wove our lives together, both past and present threatening to converge. Nostalgia transformed from a passive sense of longing into a dynamic force, guiding me toward revelations I hadn't yet fully comprehended. The fragmented stories of my father, interwoven with the experiences of my new community, formed a vibrant tapestry. I couldn't help but feel that the collective narrative we shared was more than mere coincidence. It bore the weight of fate. In the forums, threads continued to evolve into a tapestry of knowledge. Members articulated their own experiences with retrocausality, their voices rising like waves in a tide. As I absorbed their insights, it became increasingly clear that we were traversing the same mysterious current, confronting the same unanswered questions. Each shared experience threaded the narrative tighter, offering glimpses into the shadows that lurked. I couldn't shake the notion that within this collective there lay an uncharted realm that was ours for the taking. I considered creating a repository, an accessible archive for all the discussions we had with one another, adding depth to our understandings. I could compile not only my father's journal entries, but also the shared experiences of community members. This project could serve not just as a personal endeavor, but as a beacon for those who felt lost, a guide through the murky waters of temporal mystique. But while that idea excited me, I needed resources. I needed frameworks. And I couldn't forget the ancient wisdom hidden in dusty books on the subjects of time, fate, and memory. My fingers found themselves flying across the keyboard again, digging through online repositories for the academic discussions that would help underpin my findings. As I scoured through articles and essays, one sparked my interest. A thorough investigative ebook compiling research on temporal anomalies, retrocausality, and the personal experiences of people who had encountered echoes of the past in their present. The title, Threads of Time, Stories and Studies on Temporal Echoes, beckoned to me. If this ebook could synthesize the threads we had gathered, it might grant us newfound clarity. Grab the complete ebook, I typed enthusiastically into the forum, knowing I had to share this discovery with my fellow seekers. There's a treasure trove of insights that could empower our understanding of the strange connections we experience. This might lead us to the answers we're all desperate for. Momentarily, the thought of holding that ebook in my hands brought a rush of energy. It felt as if it had the potential to elevate our discussions, transforming our collective experiences into validated history. If this ebook could bridge gaps, it could empower countless others and perhaps reveal truths we had yet to even dream of. As I waited for responses, my mind began racing with ideas for the project. I envisioned chapters that could encompass all aspects of our experiences, how nostalgia connects us, the concept of retrocausality, and personal stories of prescient journaling, much like my father's writings. This would demand collaboration, but it felt exactly right. The very essence of what we were creating together in the community resonated. Moments later, several members echoed my sentiments. They too felt the impact of sharing their experiences, affirming the necessity of a repository that could encapsulate everything we were uncovering. Excitement coursed through our discussions, revitalizing our commitment to one another. Yet, amidst the invigorating energy, the shadows loomed, an unshakable reminder of what we were working against. Realization weighed heavily on my shoulders. There existed a tension between knowledge and immense uncertainty. The more we delved into our discoveries, the more daunting the possible future became. What if the shadows threatened not just to reveal, but to consume? Determined to confront that uncertainty head-on, I initiated a thread titled Facing Shadows, Navigating Our Insights. I sought to encourage everyone to share their fears and doubts to ensure that we remained firmly grounded amid the growing urgency of our discoveries.
We must prepare ourselves for the paths ahead, I wrote, hoping to instill a sense of resilience amidst our explorations. With every new response, I felt the stress of those shadows diminish. Together, we reinforced one another's resolve, encircling one another against the dark, encroaching edges of contorted time. We began to recognize that the very act of sharing our secrets, of finding communal strength, was a weapon against that looming dread. Lost in thoughts of the ebook, our shared narrative, and the support thriving within our community, I finally found a fierce determination rising within me. I was ready to confront whatever truths awaited, to unearth the possibilities that might tie us deeper into the fabric of these interconnected lives. We were not just survivors, we were architects of our fates.
The reckoning would come, whether we were prepared or not. But now we stood as one. Together, we would decode the fabric of our experiences, weave our testimonies into a tapestry of understanding, and ensure that the shadows retreat from the light shed by our collective knowledge. The energy crackling through our community felt palpable, but beneath it lingered a growing tension, an unspoken apprehension that seeped through the threads of our discussions. We were embarking on a remarkable journey into the unknown, yet the shadows loomed larger than ever, mingling dread with excitement. In many ways, grappling with the mysteries of retrocausality and temporal echoes felt like awakening a slumbering beast. We needed to summon the courage to face it. As the discourse on Facing Shadows, Navigating Our Insights evolved, I encouraged every member to dive straight into their fears, to shed light on the vulnerabilities lingered just outside our collective consciousness. This was crucial. Honestly confronting our feelings and uncertainties formed an essential part of this exploration and the narratives we were weaving. In response to my call, poignant stories emerged. One member shared her terrifying realization that echoes from her late sibling's voice had coincided with unsettling events in her life. They weren't just comforting memories, they felt too prescient, too heavy with foreboding. Another participant spoke of experiencing déjà vu in moments that felt too familiar and far too planned. The weight of shared fears only served to tighten our connection. We recognized that while we were navigating dark waters, each of us was armed with a lifeline, the strength to be found in solidarity and understanding. The unthinkable distances we once walked alone were now replaced by paths traveled together, each step culminating in deeper clarity. In the middle of our discussions, I glanced back at my father's journal laying open on my desk. The pages fluttered slightly, stirred by a draft from the window. I couldn't help but ponder if my father had faced similar existential uncertainties in his own explorations. After all, his words had long fragmented into echoes, cascading down through time to guide me, a form of counsel from beyond. Determined to honor this legacy in our connections, I decided to gather everything we had explored thus far into a document that could serve as a foundation for our collective learning. I envisioned a comprehensive guide, the very idea of which invigorated my spirit. Let's call it the Convergence Project, I proposed in the forum, my excitement bubbling over. If we pool our insights, fears, experiences, and findings, we can create a resource that transforms our journey through shadow into illumination. We can piece together our stories, an archive that encompasses everything we've unearthed. The instant feedback affirmed my vision. It sparked a wildfire of enthusiasm.
Comments poured in, affirming how the very act of sharing made our experiences feel more valid and reinvigorating us to keep pushing forward. Our project began to take shape, with members volunteering to share their narratives, facilitate discussions, and collaborate wherever necessary. This collective undertaking drew us closer, but amid this camaraderie, I still felt the encroaching shadows of unresolved mysteries and lingering uncertainties. I was both excited and anxious, as if chasing a dream that had yet to reveal its true nature. As we delved further into our insights, I proposed another discussion thread dedicated solely to the revelations we uncovered from the retrospective analysis of our experiences. What connections could we trace through our shared narratives? Had any of us noted patterns or motifs that recurred throughout the discussions, echoing back on our lives? The discourse was met with approval. Fingers danced to traverse keypads, eager to contribute the fragments of their truths. In the days that followed, I dedicated myself not only to the project, but to meticulously documenting the stories and insights we were gathering. Between my father's journal and the community's contributions, there was potential to craft something powerful, a testament to human resilience in the face of temporal mysteries. Yet, as our discussions expanded, a creeping sense of alarm returned. What if uncovering these truths intensified the shadows? The questions knotted themselves unduly around my heart as we plunged deeper. During this time, I took a step back to observe. I sought solace in my surroundings, allowing the stories echoing from the community circle to wash over me like waves, hoping to glean something of importance that we hadn't yet anticipated. Then I remembered my earlier invitation about the ebook. Maybe it was time to revisit it, to highlight pivotal aspects that might support our understanding as we wrapped our heads around these ideas of time, nostalgia, and fate. My excitement soared once again. Don't forget, grab the complete ebook, I encouraged the community anew. The insights could be our guiding light through these tangled paths we tread. Amidst the unfolding chaos, the forum rekindled itself like a beacon. Voices echoed in response, affirming that our journeys were not solitary, nor were they without purpose. We were threading our knowledge, our experiences, and yes, even our fears into one strong narrative. At that moment, I recognized the power of sharing not just our triumphs, but also our shadows. Together, we reflected the light we could not see through our concerns or grief. In rare moments when fear threatened to consume me, I offered another gentle reminder. If this investigation has helped shed light on any unresolved feelings or stories of your own, please hit that thanks button below. Your support means the world and fuels this journey. I can't fight this battle without you. In this pursuit of truth, we had each become a warrior, armed against the darkness closing in. Standing as one, I felt invigorated. Each contribution powered us, and every echo brightened what had once seemed lost or obscure. The reckoning awaited, but we were no longer burdened by isolation. We were a tempest of stories unfolding, each of us stepping into the light, ready to reclaim the narratives that were ours to tell. As we navigated the intricate web of shared experiences, unraveling the doubts and fears that tangled around us, a collective pulse of determination surged through the community. Each day, I witnessed our discussions morphing into something profound, a tapestry of interconnected lives eager for understanding. Yet, as the sobering thought of impending reckoning loomed, I became increasingly aware that we were venturing into uncharted territory. Our conversations had grown complex, charged with the energy of mutual discovery, but their intensity often brought to the surface an inescapable dread. The uncertainty surrounding retrocausality and temporal echoes hinted at possibilities far more extensive and frightening than anything we had yet addressed. What happens when one stares too keenly into the abyss of time? What if we were not merely witnesses but participants in a cosmic game that we had barely begun to understand? I felt compelled to voice these haunting thoughts during one of our evening gatherings.
What if, as we peel back the layers of our stories, I began, hesitating slightly, we unwittingly unleash something we aren't prepared to confront? Are we ready for the full weight of these revelations? In the depths of my questioning, I spotted echoes of concern reflecting back from my fellow community members. Silence enveloped the chat for a moment. We were all grappling with an unspoken fear. But then, one by one, responses materialized, weaving their way back into the discussion, etching out that familiar thread of solidarity. "We must face our shadows," one participant said. "We are grounded in our community," another added. "Together, we can withstand whatever emerges." Each assertion ignited hope, flickering like the dim light of candles amidst a storm. I began browsing our archives, looking for patterns interspersed through our conversations, threads that felt familiar yet foreign. As I pieced together the anecdotes, suddenly the hairs on my arms stood on end. Observations made by multiple members hinted at an unsettling convergence, a common experience that transcended individual fears. Instances where voices had warned them about impending events, echoes that had turned out to be true. Perhaps there was a strategy here, a structured way to understand this tapestry we had withheld rather than a reaction to fear. I realized that recounting these shared stories would forge stronger links among us and serve as warnings or lessons from the past. The ever-tightening bonds of our community gave me courage. With a burst of inspiration, I announced my intention to compile a detailed ebook, one that encapsulated everything we had unearthed so far in our threads and discussions. "Let's create something meaningful together," I suggested fervently, "an anthology of our narratives, insights, and findings. An accessible guide to the ways our experiences connect." In response, a chorus of enthusiasm flooded the chat. Participants offered to draft chapters, share analyses, and intertwine personal stories, each contribution solidifying our sense of purpose. As our discussions rallied around this idea, I could feel the pulse of hope growing stronger, a guiding light in the shadows threatening our existence. "The insights we've gained could serve as a beacon of knowledge," I typed, my fingers working through the keyboard like lightning. "If we document these revelations, it might empower not just us, but anyone else who feels lost in the maze of time and memory." As excitement surged, I turned my attention back to the title of the ebook I had earlier discovered, Threads of Time, Stories and Studies on Temporal Echoes. I revisited it in my mind, picturing its comprehensive approach to the subjects we had begun to explore. "We should have our ebook titled similarly," I exclaimed. "Let's include every facet we've discussed, every secret we've unearthed." Enthusiasm ignited. The whole community seemed invigorated by this visionary project, driven by the shared goal of seeking understanding amidst the shadows. Ideas began to flow, and our spirits soared as we pieced together what felt like an illuminating guide rooted in collective experiences. Yet, amidst this creative energy, uncertain shadows crept once again. The enormity of our project began to feel heavy and daunting. What if we unearthed too much? What if we disrupted the balance we had fought to find? I pressed my palms against the wooden desk, fighting against the urge to panic. But then I recalled a thread of discussions about balance. It was not just about uncovering the darkness. It was also about shedding light on the resilience we fostered within our community. We were not helpless. We were chosen survivors ready to reclaim lost narratives and reshape our destinies. Rallying from this revelation, I again felt compelled to share my thoughts. "No matter how daunting the shadows may seem," I typed into the chat, "our journey is worth undertaking." I encouraged everyone to embrace the unknown with courage. And remember, the completed ebook could serve as a vital resource for those embarking on their own quests, struggling with echoes from the past, just like us. Reinforcing that conviction, I added, if our investigation has helped shine a light on unresolved feelings or stories of your own,
please consider hitting that thanks button below. It helps support our efforts and fuels this collective exploration. We're in this together. With every keystroke, I could feel the anxiety lift, battered away by the chorus of voices strengthening. Each response embraced the idea that this journey was not one to be taken lightly, but rather with resolute determination. Together, we would not only navigate the unfolding chaos, we would document it. The reckoning awaited us, but now it felt significantly less daunting. Now we stood as a cohesive unit, ready to face whatever truths emerged, eternally intertwined in the fabric of time, a boundless tapestry woven from shared experiences and collective understanding. Armed with our stories, we would craft the legacy of light against the darkness, and the shadows would tremble before us. As we solidified our commitment to the ebook, I felt the transformative power of our discussions crystallizing into something profound. We had journeyed through the labyrinth of shadows, uncovering the echoes of the past, threading our individual narratives together into a collective story destined to inspire others. There was a palpable excitement in the community as we envisioned how our anthology, which I affectionately named Threads of Time, Stories and Studies on Temporal Echoes, could serve not only as a guide for ourselves, but for anyone grappling with the complexities of time and memory. Let's make sure we include our insights about confronting fears as well, I suggested, eager to capture every facet of our experiences. The responses poured in, each voice echoing enthusiasm and camaraderie. Ideas flowed like a river, and it felt as if we were collectively forging a beacon against the darkness that hovered over us. The commitment to document our findings and personal stories solidified our collective purpose, breathing life into each of our narratives. Yet, a deeper tension lingered beneath the surface. As we prepared to compile our work, I couldn't shake the feeling that our efforts might disrupt something fragile within the fabric of time that we had only begun to understand. What if we unearthed truths better left buried? The weight of that responsibility was heavy. Steeling myself, I typed into the chat. While our journey may reveal unsettling realities, we must remain committed to sharing what we find. Each of our experiences is valid. We are not alone in this. Before I could dwell too long on uncertainty, I recalled the warmth of community that had helped me when my own fears had threatened to consume me. Someone commented, "Every echo matters. Our challenges can become someone else's guide." The thought resonated deeply. Yes, we could empower others to stand against their own fears, just as we had. As the night unfurled like the final pages of a book, my heart swelled in recognition of the strength we had cultivated together. I urged everyone once more to embrace our shared mission, reminding them, if you found light in your own journeys, even shadows illuminating truths, please consider hitting that thanks button below. Your support fuels this exploration, and we're forging a path together. Finishing my reflection, I took a moment to gaze out the window. The world outside seemed imbued with a new vibrancy, colors vivid against the twilight sky. We weren't just participants, we were architects of our destinies, ready to shape a legacy. In that silent promise, we stood resilient. The reckoning would come, but together we would craft our narrative from the shadows, illuminating paths for those seeking answers in the tangled web of time. The shadows might tremble, but we would rise, strong and united, ready to embrace whatever truths awaited us.